Hello everybody and welcome to another video, my first one in a couple months actually. I apologize if my voice sounds a little funny. I've been a little sick for the last week and a half, which I'm mostly over now, but it really did a number on my throat, and talking at times can be very difficult, and my voice sounds a little funny, so I do apologize for that. But I just don't know when I'll be able to do this video other than right now. So I wanted to get it done. But today I'd like to do a video kind of talking about the Star Wars High Republic books and ranking them as well. The ones that I've read at least, which are the 3 adult novels and the 3 young adult novels. And I know there's a lot more than just those. There's comics and some other younger readers' books and stuff like that, but I have not read any of those. So I'll just be ranking the 6 that I have read. So of course we are now coming to the end of Phase 1 of the High Republic, and overall my impressions of it are quite positive. In fact, I would probably say it's my favorite thing to come out of Star Wars since the Disney acquisition back in 2012, and also possibly even my favorite thing since Knights of the Old Republic, which some of you probably know Knights of the Old Republic is my favorite Star Wars thing ever. So to say that this is my favorite thing since then is a pretty big deal. I've just really enjoyed the stories and the characters, and I'm sure that as it goes on and we get more of these stories, since we're only ending the first phase out of, I believe, 3 that are planned, I'm sure that my appreciation for this project and this era will only grow from here. So I suppose we'll get started with the ranking. Like I said, I will be including the 3 adult novels and the 3 young adult novels from Phase 1. So getting started in number 6 spot, my least favorite of the High Republic novels thus far is Out of the Shadows, the 2nd young adult novel, which was released in July of 2020, or 2021, sorry. Written by Justina Arland. And what's kind of weird about this one is that this one is very easily, definitively my least favorite, whereas the 3 after this are all practically equal, and my top 2 are also practically equal. So this is the only one that I feel 100% confident in placing. I thought that the characters especially were well done. I really enjoyed Reath Silas, who's one of my favorite High Republic characters, and he has appeared in all 3 of the young adult novels, which I am very thankful for because I really like him. And he's great in this book, and there's also Vernestra, who I really enjoyed in this novel as well. And overall, the characters were good, and the story was alright, and there was some interesting parts to it. Had a bit of an interesting mystery thing going on, but overall, it just didn't leave much of an impression on me. My top 2, I would give practically a 10 out of 10, and these next few, even though are not quite that high for me, I still really enjoyed them and find them memorable for one reason or another. This one just doesn't have that for me. It was just kind of one of those books where I read it and I thought it was alright, and then I've practically forgotten about it. So the next one up at number 5, and again, the next 3 are practically equal for me, so I struggle to really place them, and I've actually been shifting them around a little bit, even in between takes here. But the next one up is actually the very first High Republic novel, and that is Light of the Jedi, which was released, I believe, in January of 2021. Now, this one I did enjoy more than Out of the Shadows, but it is kind of in a similar boat, sort of. I think the story and the characters in this one are stronger than they are in Out of the Shadows, but again, it just wasn't one that left as much of an impression on me as the rest of these. But it does do a really great job of establishing the era and the story for at least the adult novels, and the characters within them, and introduces a lot of the ones that are going to be big players throughout the adult novels. So for example, Avar Kriss, right on the front here, she does appear quite prominently in this book, and she also comes up in The Fallen Star. I don't think she's really in The Rising Storm, if my memory serves me right. As well as Elzar Mann, who is probably my favorite High Republic character so far. I really, really enjoy his character. As well as Loden Greatstorm as well down here in the corner, who I believe only really appears in this one, and I think in The Rising Storm, I can't remember. I think he's in both of them though. But he, I think, appears more prominently in Light of the Jedi. And also I feel like this one was a little messy in terms of how it kind of brings everything together, especially in the first half. I think the second half kind of, narrows things down, narrows the focus down, and does a better job of just, telling the story. Whereas the beginning is just kind of jumping all over the place to all these different characters and everything. It's a little confusing even for me when I first read it, and by the way, I've only read all of these books once as of right now. Um, when I first read it, I was kind of confused at first for a little while, just, you know, taking in everything, and there's just so much going on. But it's a solid beginning to the High Republic, and I could put it higher, but I think just because it didn't leave as big of an impression on me as these next four books, I'm just going to put it at number 5. Next one, number 4, is another YA book, and it is Into the Dark. This was released, I think, a month after Light of the Jedi, and again, kind of difficult to place. I considered putting this at the number 3 spot and having my number 3 in this spot, but I decided to put this one at number 4. Unlike the past two that I talked about, this is where they really start sticking with me. This story kind of really left an impression on me, and I really enjoyed it. And this one, as well as the next one I'm going to talk about, I think is a really strong character book. Not that the other, what would it be, 3, 4 books that I are not included in that are not great character books, but I think that is especially where this one and the next one I'm going to talk about, especially the next one, really shine is in the characters and the character work. Because the story in this one I thought was good. I was always curious what was going to happen next, but what really kept me going to read this one was the characters. Again, Rhys Silas, I absolutely love. He's one of my favorite characters. And then the crew of the vessel as well. This is their first appearance, and I really enjoyed them. And this also introduces Master Comac and Orla and a couple of others who are some of my favorite characters, especially Comac, having now read Midnight Horizon especially. He was already one of my favorites based on this, but now after Midnight Horizon, I think he is definitely like top 5 High Republic characters so far. But this just introduced a lot of great characters, and the story was pretty good. It introduces the Drengir, I'm just going to call them Drengir, as villains, who I believe this is the only book in Wave 1, at least for the YA and the adult novels, that actually includes the Drengir, which is kind of weird because they are really well established in this book, and then they just kind of are only mentioned from here onward, which I found really odd. I figured they would probably be the main villains of the YA books, while the Nile kind of took over the adult novels. Again, great characters. That's where really this one is strongest, and a good story overall that I did enjoy. Getting into the halfway point of the list now, at number 3, I have the most recent and the final novel of the Phase 1 of the High Republic, at least in terms of the YA and the adult novels, and that is Midnight Horizon. Now, this one may be recency bias because I literally finished this book last night. And again, it's kind of difficult to place this one and Light of the Jedi and Into the Dark. But I decided to put this one at the top of that grouping because out of all 3 of those, this one really got the characters right, I think. Not that the other 2 didn't, of course, but I think this one, out of pretty much all the books up to this point, does the best job with the characters, which for me is probably the most important aspect of a story. Not that the actual narrative isn't important, and the actual storyline, but I think if you don't have engaging characters, then that really hurts the story. Like, you can have a good story, but if the characters are not the solid backbone, then I think it's going to fall a little flat. And I think that the characters really helped this book a lot because the story itself, I was not super interested in, at least in the first half. The second half, I was a little more interested in it. But again, you can have a story that I'm not going to be as invested in, but if the characters are great, then I'm going to be keeping on reading. And again, this one prominently features Rhys Silas, which once again I'm very happy about, as well as Comac, who again, one of my favorites now, especially after reading this one. And it also brings in some other characters like Ram, who's a lot of fun, and Crash, who is a new character to this book, I believe, who I enjoyed, and Cantum Sai, who I really liked as well. And overall, it's just a really great character book for me. Aside from Out of the Shadows, this one probably has the weakest actual plot, in my opinion. It just wasn't that interesting to me for a solid chunk of the book, and really only got interesting to me towards the second half. But once again, the characters are fantastic, so that's really why it comes in at number 3. So now we have the top 2, which again is kind of a difficult placement for me because both of these books, in my opinion, were either at like a 10 out of 10 or very, very close to it. But ultimately, I do have an order that I'm going to place these, and I think it's a pretty solid one, and I will give my reasoning for that. So the first one, number 2, is The Fallen Star, the final adult novel in Phase 1, and I really, really love this book. It is, in my opinion, it probably features some of the absolute highest highs of the High Republic so far. And just the storyline of it, of the Nile attacking the Starlight Beacon, and this book pretty much entirely takes place on Starlight Beacon, I believe, which was really cool to see. But the Nile attacking Starlight Beacon and trying to take it down was a really engaging story. And once again, in this one, the characters are really great. We get to see more of Stellan Gios, who I really enjoyed, and this book basically single-handedly made him one of my favorites. And we also get a lot of Belzetifar, which is great, and once again, also more Elzar Mann, which I'm not going to complain about because he is my favorite High Republic character. But this one does a really good job of just telling a really engaging story with a really, just a lot of tension to it. And I think that's something that both of the top 2 books do really fantastically, is the tension. Because this one, I'm not really going to get into spoilers because I haven't really been doing that for these. But with this one, there is stuff going on where the tension is just really high. And this book actually reminded me a bit of something like cosmic horror with like H.P. Lovecraft, which may just be because at the time I was reading this, I was also reading some Lovecraft. But just the fear of the unknown, encountering something that is just so horrifying that you can't really comprehend it, and it just leads to you just completely falling apart, is a big thing in this book. So it kind of drew that connection, which I really liked. Overall, it's just a really good story with really good characters, and like I said, has some of the absolute highest highs of the High Republic, especially in the second half. The first half is really good too, but the second half, I think, is probably the best section of a High Republic book thus far. For me, the second half of this book probably, for me, is better than the entirety of my number 1 pick, but I think my number 1 is a little more overall solid. But yeah, great book. Great sort of ending for this arc of Phase 1 as far as the adult novels, and I'm really excited to see what happens next. And finally, the number 1 pick, which some of you may not be very surprised to see considering the very high praise that I have given it in the past, and that is The Rising Storm by Cavan Scott. This was the second adult novel. It came out in the summer of 2021. And I absolutely adored this book when I first read it, and I still do. I think it is a nearly perfect novel, in my opinion, which is not something I can say for all the other ones. All the other ones, I can point out something that I didn't enjoy as much, even for The Fallen Star. The first half didn't grab me as much as the second half, even though it was still good. This one was just constantly, I could not stop reading it. And once again, like I mentioned with The Fallen Star, the tension in this book is fantastically done. Cavan Scott does a great job with the tension and the build-up. And the first half of this book is basically all build-up to the big event the Republic fair on Valo, which is attacked by the Nile, kind of a common theme in these books. But the first half is just all tension, building up and building up until the halfway point when the attack happens, and everything from then on just keeps going wrong. And it is just heartbreaking and horrifying, but it's so good. And I just loved this book so much. And again, great characters as well. You've got Stellan Gios there, and Belzed of Heart and Elzar Mann as well appears in this book, which once again is great. And Chancellor Lena So plays a pretty significant part in this book, which is really cool as well. And overall, it's just a fantastic book, and definitely one of my favorite Star Wars books that I have ever read up to this point, which admittedly isn't a ton. It's only like 30 to 40, but out of all of those, this is like very, very top. It is kind of difficult for me to choose whether I prefer The Fallen Star or The Rising Storm, but the reason I put it at the top is just because overall I think it's more solid. Like I said, I just loved it all the way through. So yeah, that's my number one pick. So that is pretty much it for this video. I do apologize if it's a little bit long. As of right now, I've been recording for almost half an hour. So I do apologize if this video runs a little long. I'll probably try to cut it down a little bit in editing. But I hope you have enjoyed this ranking. Let me know down in the comments what your favorite High Republic story has been thus far. Even if it's not one of these novels, even if it's one of the comics or one of the younger readers' books or whatever it may be, let me know down in the comments. And that is pretty much it for this video. So I'll see you guys next time.